Greetings all! Today, we will be examining the members of the legendary Titans Quartet, namely Regirock, the Rock Peak Pokémon, Regice, the Iceberg Pokémon, Registeel, the Iron Pokémon, and Regigigas, the Colossal Pokémon. Feared by many for their imposing bodies and robotic mannerisms, the members of the legendary Titans Quartet are fierce combatants that can easily weather the toughest of blows and remain standing even when it seems like they should go down quickly. Regirock possess light and dark brown bodies that are made entirely out of rock, with a proper set of arms and stumpy legs, though they do not have real hands per se, merely rough boulders that comprise their form. They have peaked shoulders and a series of 3 large spines of rock that are attached to their back, and overall have a form that looks to be an amalgamation of different rock pieces together, their only facial marking being a series of 7 mechanical orange eyes arranged on their face in the shape of an H. Regice possess blue bodies that are made entirely out of extremely hard ice, also possessing a roughly humanoid form, though their legs end in small points that they glide around on. Their main body parts are made from a series of massive ice crystals that are interlocked with each other, including the 3 fingers that they have on each hand and the quartet of massive ice crystals that sprout from their back, their only facial marking being a series of 7 mechanical yellow eyes arranged on their face in a cross shape. Registeel possess silver bodies that are made entirely out of some sort of metal without any hard corners or points on their rounded form, though they do have a noticeable waist that flares out in wide hips flanked by a pair of flat-bottomed metallic feet. Their black arms are spindly in form and end with 3 silver rounded fingers that are fully articulated, with 3 red triangles on their black hands pointing towards their arms at each knuckle, the arms themselves attached to the body at rounded socket coverings. The front and back of their form is split to reveal a black inset middle torso and face, with their only facial adornment being a series of 7 mechanical red eyes arranged in a circular pattern. The leader and creator of these previous creatures, Regigigas, have massive humanoid frames coated in white glaze over most of their form, adorned with black markings and stripes that create an impressive color contrast on their form. They have 3 white fingers on each hand with a flared golden cuff of solid material at each of their wrists and shoulders, and a 3rd protrusion of gold material on the front of their face, with an oblong structure that houses a series of 7 mechanical black eyes arranged in an elongated cross shape. The front of their chest is adorned with a pair of colored beacons that indicate their current energy state, one of each color of red, blue, and gray set on each side of their torso. In addition, as a consequence of being in stasis for extremely long periods of time in locations that are often open to the environment, the upper shoulders and feet areas of their bodies are covered in shrub-like moss, granting them an organic appearance of sorts despite being pure automatons. The members of the legendary Titans Quartet are mysterious automatons whose general purpose is not entirely known at this point, but there can be some information gleaned from the various ancient ruins that they occupy in the world. Millennia ago, there was once an ancient unknown civilization that was incredibly advanced for their time, sort of like legends of the people of Atlantis. In fact, this parallel is not entirely unfounded, as some of the ancient ruins that have been left behind by these strange people can be found deep underwater, even if most of them are on dry land, and there is great evidence to suggest that they had a global presence, as ruins from the civilization can be found among many parts of the world. This unnamed civilization is not only responsible for the visual Braille language that is iconic in their writing, but it seems that they also had the power to create powerful automatons that had immense power. This is, of course, referring to the main leader of this legendary group, Regigigas. These monsters' physical strength is so great that in legend it is said that they were responsible for moving the continents into their current place by pulling them into place with ropes tied to their body. This is an exaggeration for the process of continental drift, of course, but it does nonetheless speak to the incredible power that these creatures possess. From this, the automatons themselves were tasked with creating creatures like them, and using their signature crush grip attack, they melded rock, dense ice, and magma to form the other members of the group, Regirock, Regice, and Registeel, respectively. For what purpose these automatons as a whole were formed for, we do not know, but we know that they made quite a few, and that these creatures likely served the civilization in becoming a global presence in some manner or another, whether it was for offense, protection, or something else altogether. What can be said is that these strange entities all run on electricity as a power source, and are able to generate an internal positive charge in their forms to generate a current in themselves, which helps to explain their access to moves like Charge Beam and Zap Cannon, and were likely able to make good use of such moves to attack and defend others during times of conflict. However, at some point in the past, and for reasons that are still unknown and baffling, this civilization died off, and as a part of their last will, they sealed most of these automatons away in ancient ruins that can only be unlocked and explored by those clever enough to get past the numerous puzzles that lie in wait, sealing the doors to these creatures. Doing so can be more than a bit dangerous, however, as these creatures, despite their primitive construction, are all completely sentient and highly intelligent, able to use their natural powers to great effect to destroy those that would dare to attack them. They might be better suited for defense as a whole, but these automatons are highly aggressive in most cases and will stop at nothing to fight off intruders that dare to disturb their slumber. Regirock, as will become apparent as a common theme among the members of this legendary quartet, does not possess any form of heart or brain or internal organs of any real sort, instead being made entirely out of rock. Even their internal forms have a uniform structure to them, with their limbs being connected to their body by sturdy ball and socket joints made out of polished rock that allow them to swivel their limbs fairly freely, though their form means that they do eventually wear away over time and must be replaced periodically. Because they have no internal form, it would seem to suggest that they have no way of repairing any bodily damage done to their forms, but this is not the case at all. In fact, Regirock have the seemingly miraculous ability to actually absorb rock material into their bodies and use it to repair themselves. In short, if part of their body is chipped away or otherwise damaged in battle, these creatures can simply put the damaged body part near a rock and, using the immense electrical energy contained in them, superheat their form until it sticks to and fuses with the rock material, completely healing the damage done in the process. It is thought that this is a process that has been conducted in more than just one location, for every individual Regirock can be seen to have a body that is made out of a number of bits and pieces of different rock types that have slowly been accumulated from across the world, further suggesting the possible presence of an underground tunnel system where they can travel to different parts of the world to heal themselves. Because their bodies are effectively made completely out of inanimate material and are able to repair and reform at will, these creatures tend to be able to alter their forms to instantly handle changes made to their stats by others, and thus normally possess clear body as their only base ability. However, those that are made out of extremely hard rock can oftentimes trade this with an impermeable body that cannot easily be cut through by any means, instead granting them access to the sturdy ability. As far as their stats go, with Regirock, it's all about physical contact, as the powerful solid forms they possess are extremely durable and are able to withstand the harshest of physical blows with relative ease, further having a decent amount of stamina to them. As such, their base HP, attack, defense, and special defense stats are at or above average for fully evolved rock-type Pokémon, their base special attack and speed stats being the only ones that don't make the cut. Moreover, their base defense stat is incredibly high and would be a top-ranking stat if it were not for Shuckle, but it nonetheless makes them into powerful physical walls that can take a beating and keep right on going until they have finished pulverizing the opposition into dust. Much as with Regirock, Regice have bodies that completely lack internal organs of any sort, instead being made almost completely out of solid ice. Their internal form is nearly flawless in its crystalline structure, with only some abnormalities that seem to act as a conduit system for the electrical energy that courses through them, and their limbs are connected to the main body by ball and socket joints made out of polished ice. And while these joints do experience wear and tear over time, they are easily fixed by absorbing water into the joints and then moving their limbs rapidly to quickly repolish the joint. The ice that these creatures are made from is said to originate from Antarctica and has been tempered by extreme pressure, and dating of impurities in the ice suggests that the ice itself mainly comes from the time of the last Great Ice Age, with it being abnormally dense and capable of maintaining its form under extreme pressure conditions, which helps as these creatures seem to enjoy sleeping in glaciers when they are not sealed away. While they might not be the most offensively powerful fighters out there, getting near a Regice is a terrible idea, as these automatons have the ability to chill the air around them to negative 328 degrees Fahrenheit, effectively freezing solid and likely killing anything that gets too close to them, including other ice types. In fact, their bodies are such imposing walls that they can actually bathe in magma and not melt in the slightest because of how densely packed the ice is in their body. As a result of their forms being capable of being molded in order to adjust to stat changes made to them by opponents, these creatures normally have access to the clear body ability as their only base ability, but those that are more gifted in being able to regenerate their bodies by absorbing water and ice into them can also have the ice body ability as a hidden ability. In terms of stats, Regice serve as the polar opposite of Regirock in their most important stats, as while the base attack and speed stats are below average for fully evolved Ice-type Pokémon, as a counterpart to Regirock, the reflective and solid bodies of these creatures grant them an incredible defense against special attacks, plus some decent physical resilience, and the ability to wield them quite well even if their stamina isn't that great for an Ice-type. So the base defense, special attack, and special defense stats are above average for fully evolved Pokémon of their type, further possessing the highest base special defense stat out of all Ice-type Pokémon, and making them an imposing special wall that can take strikes from afar readily and deal some nasty blows back in return. Following the general theme set by its contemporaries, Registeel do not have any serious internal structures or organ systems of any sort, their bodies almost completely being made out of pure metal, tempered over tens of thousands of years by extreme heat and pressure. This goes one step further for these creatures in particular, however, because scans have indicated that the insides of these monsters are completely and utterly hollow, with little more than empty space behind their metal outer shell, which is only a few inches thick. This means that the electrical energy that courses through them only travels through their main body, but this does not deter them too much, as their limbs are still connected by ball and socket joints like the others and can be moved quite freely due to being made out of polished metal. Though, unlike Regirock and Regice, these joints never rust or get damaged, so neither they nor the creature's body as a whole ever needs to be repaired under normal circumstances, raising some minor questions then as to what they actually consume to maintain their energy levels outside of free electrons in the air. In speaking of their physical form, it is also then worth noting that the metal that comprises the bodies of these creatures is highly unusual and unlike any other type of metal known in the world, for not only is it extremely hard and completely scratch-proof, but it also has the ability to stretch and shrink freely in response to temperature swings and thus prevents their bodies from ever deforming. It is unknown how exactly this bizarre alloy was formed, but it can be said at least that iron is its dominant component, hence its species title, but is present in a crystalline form with other impurities, suggesting that it may contain meteorite metal in it. Regardless, this miraculous metal freely conducts electricity and is able to keep these creatures moving fairly well, and because its form can change size and shape to adjust for changes to its environment and form, these creatures can possess the clear body ability as their only primary ability, while those that have an alloy variant containing lighter, less massive metals can instead have access to the light metal ability as a hidden ability. In terms of stats, Registeel represent the middle of the road when it comes to the stats of Regirock and Regice, as while they have stats that are strong as a whole, they are balanced equally in physical and special forms compared to the greater specialization held by their previously mentioned brethren. On the one hand, this lack of specialization can make them less of a wall compared to those two, but at the same time, their balanced stats help to make them a threat both up close and afar. So while they might share with at least some of their brethren slow movement speeds and weaker offenses than most, their stamina and overall defenses are still quite impressive, and thus possess above average base HP, defense, and special defense stats for a fully evolved Steel-type Pokémon. In turn, they possess the highest base special defense stat out of all Steel-type Pokémon, tied with Probopass and Aegislash, and can thus be imposing golems that can take any kind of damage and keep right on fighting, even if the blow might have been enough to take down most opponents more readily. Standing proudly above their other contemporaries is the true leader of this legendary quartet, the legendary Pokémon Regigigas, and it is truly a titan worth fearing under the right circumstances. As mentioned before, it is unknown exactly why these creatures were created in the first place, but it seems that whatever happened to the people that built them, they wanted to make sure that others could not get a hold of them, so most of them were locked in temples across the world where they could not easily be found. Over time, many of these temples have likely crumbled due to things like tectonic activity and human interference, but more and more are being discovered as the years go by, so it can be said that Regigigas, along with their contemporaries, are not as extremely rare as some might think. However, Regigigas are different because, in many cases, the presence of the other members of the quartet is needed to open the gateways to them or otherwise awaken them, thus making them far harder to find and obtain for study or use. The bodies of these creatures seem to be made out of an abnormal metal-rich ceramic that, while not as sturdy as the materials that comprise the bodies of their contemporaries, is surprisingly sturdy and is able to withstand great burdens, which might explain why these creatures can sometimes survive the collapse of the temple or ruins they are stored within. What really holds these creatures back, however, is sadly the fact that many have been in stasis for a very long time. Because of their larger size, these automatons need more energy to sustain themselves than the others, and being in stasis reduces the amount of positive charge they can produce in the body to drive a current. This results in them depleting their energy reserves over time, and doing so actually damages them internally, reducing the effectiveness of their internal structure in basic physical operations. This is directly represented in their only possible and signature ability, Slow Start, as because of the damage already done to them, it takes time for these creatures to get their internal mechanisms up and fully operational in a fight. So when they are sent into battle, for the first 5 turns of combat, or about 5 to 10 minutes in real time, their attack and speed stats are halved, only returning to working order after this period of time. The fact that their only ability hampers them in this fashion makes them little more than sitting ducks, especially since the damage done to them results in Regigigas being unable to learn any form of special attack naturally. But if they can survive long enough to get their act together, their opposition is in for a nightmare of a fight. These creatures possess a tremendous degree of physical power, the legend of them towing the continents being a reflection of this, and this is also signified in their special signature attack, the Crush Grip attack. While the move effectively just works as a physical form of the Ring Out attack, being more powerful the more HP an opponent has, it is also a symbolic attack, as it is with this move that Regigigas crush and compress raw materials to make the other members of the Titans Quartet, using their own energy reserves to take the bodies they mold and bring them to life. This immense power is further reflected in their stats, as they are among the strongest of Pokemon based on their stats alone, with all of the base stats of these massive automatons being above average for fully evolved normal type Pokemon, the base attack stat in particular being ridiculously high and granting them the highest base attack stat out of all normal type Pokemon, tied with Slacking. Though it might take some time to really get them off of the ground, Regigigas are imposing constructs that can more than demolish anything that dares to get in their way once they manage to get themselves into full working order. Although Regigigas generally remain outside the public eye because of their rarity, one recent incident involving a Regigigas is worth noting: the Zero incident. 10 years ago, following the events of the Alamos Town incident, a black smoke, likely generated from the temporal and spatial disturbance created from the interaction between Palkia and Dialga, apparently began to fill portions of the Distortion World, the home dimension of the legendary Pokemon Giratina. Infuriated, Giratina attempted to grab Dialga, the one who started the fight that led to the previous incident, and destroy it within the Distortion World, but was prevented from doing so when a nearby shaman that had been scooped up in the conflict became scared and used its Seed Flare attack, thinking that Giratina was going to eat it. Due to the bizarre mechanics of the Distortion World, this generated a portal through which Dialga was able to escape, but Giratina was not, instead trapping it in a temporary time loop until the portal completely closed. That same shaman was later rescued by a group of young kids and asked them to take it to a nearby migration point, which is where it had originally intended to go. Shortly afterwards, however, those same children got pulled into the Distortion World by accident and came face to face with Giratina, as well as a scientist named Newton Graceland, who had apparently been studying Giratina for several years. After escaping with the shaman back into the normal world and beginning their journey towards the destined migration point, the children were attacked by a young man named Zero. Apparently, Zero was the former assistant of Newton Graceland and had left when his mentor decided to leave Giratina alone instead of copying and potentially controlling its powers. Newton had decided against such a plan because he realized that the Distortion World and the normal world were designed to feed off of each other. If one were to be damaged in any way, both worlds would suffer. Zero, however, did not understand this and merely wished to rule the Distortion World as his own little paradise without any regards to the safety of the normal world. After capturing and using the shaman's fear of being eaten by Giratina to open up a portal to the real world with another Seed Flare attack, Zero used his ship, a prototype device designed by his mentor, to slowly absorb Giratina's powers while simultaneously destabilizing its cellular structure. Before Giratina was completely vaporized by the energy drain, however, Newton managed to deactivate the ship. In turn, the shaman that had once been so afraid of Giratina used its aromatherapy technique to restore Giratina's health. Unfortunately, Zero was not finished and used a battle-oriented escape pod to journey back to the Distortion World before destroying many ice pillars in an isolated corner of the realm. This in turn caused a nearby glacier in the real world to begin moving, threatening the existence of many lives. This, thankfully, however, also awakened a nearby Regigigas who, accompanied by a fairly large herd of mammal swine, attempted to push back the glacier. It was only after Giratina managed to destroy Zero's escape pod, however, that there was enough time for Giratina to restore the damaged pillars, in turn halting the glacier's advance. Afterwards, the shaman involved in the incident flew away with a small group of shaman towards an unknown destination, while Giratina returned to the Distortion World and Zero was promptly arrested by the local police force. Virtually indestructible by any normal means and more than powerful enough to be a severe threat to all that have to face them, the members of the legendary Titans Quartet are powerful Pokemon that can take hits like they were nothing and, in some cases, deliver equally powerful strikes that can more than decimate those that oppose them. You may likely have to go far out of your way to locate them and be willing to decipher some serious puzzles in the process, but for those that are clever enough and willing to give it all to obtain them, they can be loyal fighters that will always obey those that wield them and prove to be juggernauts that very few can take down easily. If you ever come across any of these artificial monsters, make sure that you are prepared for the worst and are willing to spend a long time getting them into capturing range, if you can even get to that point. Let them run rampant for too long, and they may just show you the true power they are capable of, and in the case of a Regigigas, time may be the only thing standing between it and the decimation of every single living and inanimate form that dares to stand up against their crushing hands and cataclysmic physical might. Thank you all for watching this video. It is always an honor to be able to speak with you all on the subject of Pokemon in a way that brings me great joy and happiness in my work. If you would like to keep tabs on past and future work, click that subscribe button, check out my work on DeviantArt, and don't be shy about following me on Twitter, where you can find pertinent announcements on upcoming work before it is officially posted. Links to both can be found in the video description. If you would like to support my work and help Miguel and I continue to produce more content for you and improve upon our presentation, please visit us at my Patreon page, which you can also find a link to in the video description.
Yeah, no.
With that, I thank you for watching and I wish you well.